72 hours to get out of my own house. That was the ultimatum a cocky teenager threw in my face while live streaming on my dock. His mom, the HOA president, stood right behind him nodding like this was perfectly normal. They thought they could take my cabin, my sanctuary, and turn it into some kind of playground for his graduation party. They had no idea who they were messing with. 6 months before all this chaos, I thought I'd found peace. Pine Valley Estates looked like paradise, a quiet lakefront neighborhood an hour outside the city. After 23 years as a cop, I was ready for coffee on the dock, fishing rods, and mornings without drama. That's why I bought the place through an LLC, kept my real job to myself, and let the neighbors think I was just some low-profile consultant. It should have been simple. But then, one morning, I heard heavy footsteps on my dock, the kind of footsteps that say, "I belong here." I turned and saw this kid Dylan Thompson, maybe 18, dressed in designer clothes, walking like he owned the place. Behind him, 3 friends filming on their phones. He didn't even bother with hello. He just planted himself in front of me and declared, "I'm Dylan. My mom's the HOA president. This cabin's been voted for community use. You've got 72 hours to clear out, old man." His friends whooped like this was some epic victory. I was 45, not ancient, but apparently to him that made me a dinosaur. I set down my coffee, stared him down, and said evenly, "This is private property. I own it." He laughed. Actually laughed. "No, dude, my mom already handled the legal stuff. Youth Access Initiative, whatever. Party's in 3 weeks. You're out." That's when Rebecca Thompson herself appeared. Clipboard folder, the whole suburban dictator look. She smiled, too sweet, too fake. "Mr. Carter, the board has voted to designate your property for emergency youth access. It's all legal." She slid the papers across my table. They looked official letterhead signatures, but my gut told me they were as fake as a $3 bill. Years of spotting forged documents had trained me well. I didn't let her see that, though. "I'll need to review this with my attorney," I said. Her smile cracked just for a second, then came back sharper. 72 hours. We wouldn't want any unpleasantness. The message was clear: roll over or get crushed. From that day on, they came at me hard. Inspections out of nowhere, building codes, fire safety, environmental complaints. All bogus. Dylan kept live streaming about liberating community property, and the neighborhood started giving me dirty looks like I was some kind of villain. At night, I'd walk outside and see graffiti on my shed community property in bright red. That shed held my father's old fishing gear memories that couldn't be replaced, now vandalized like they were nothing. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about giving up. One night, sitting on my porch staring at that graffiti, I thought maybe I'd made a mistake moving here. Maybe I should sell, cut my losses, disappear. I was tired. I'd spent my life fighting criminals, and here I was fighting a spoiled kid and his power-drunk mother. For the first time, I wondered maybe I really was the problem. Then came Ellie Wilson. Retired teacher, lived here longer than anyone. She knocked on my door with a plate of cookies and eyes that said she was fed up. "Stephen," she said, "Rebecca's been making our lives hell for years. Wrong shade of paint." Fine, bird feeders banned. She made Mrs. Henderson cry over her garden gnomes. Nobody fights back because she threatens us into silence. But you're different. Or, Ellie was right. Rebecca wasn't just throwing a party for her kid, she and her husband were developers. They wanted my cabin gone so they could expand their projects. Dylan's party demand was just the smokescreen. Suddenly giving up wasn't an option. And then Dylan handed me the golden ticket. One Tuesday night, my cameras caught him and his buddies sneaking into my shed, crowbar in hand, live streaming their mission. They stole my dad's fishing gear, spray-painted more graffiti, and narrated the whole crime like it was a game. I called the sheriff's office not as Chief Carter, but as Stephen, the victim. Deputies arrived in minutes, caught Dylan red-handed while Rebecca showed up screaming, "This is community property. My son has every right." The deputies looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "Ma'am, breaking and entering is still a crime. Your son's under arrest," Dylan wailed. But Mom said it was legal. His live stream caught every second. His followers watched their hero get cuffed. Rebecca wasn't done. She doubled down. called another emergency HOA meeting, this time with cameras reporters, teenagers lined up to testify about how cruel I was. She stood at the podium selling lies about youth empowerment, waving fake charts. But when she tried to force a vote to seize my cabin, I stood up. Point of order. Show us the county code authorizing this. The room went quiet. I pulled out documents from the county attorney's office. Those codes didn't exist. Her whole scheme was built on smoke. Still, she didn't stop. She was too far in. Which led to the final act, the so-called lakefront takeover. Graduation week. Dylan announced his party was happening no matter what. By noon, my lawn was crawling with teenagers, coolers of beer blasting speakers. Dylan strutted around like a general, live streaming every second. "The youth will not be denied," he shouted while kids trashed my garden and spray-painted youth zone across my shed. Rebecca showed up too, dressed in a Community First shirt, dragging a local news crew. She gave interviews about progressive space sharing while her son was literally destroying my property in the background. Dylan even tried disabling my visible cameras with a signal jammer, not knowing I had hidden systems recording everything in 4K. By late afternoon, drunk kids broke into my cabin, rifled through my things, live streaming from my furniture. My dock, my father's dock, was littered with bottles and paint. And then the sirens came. Patrol cars rolled in, deputies fanned out, reporters' cameras pivoted. Rebecca rushed forward, switching gears in seconds. "Officers, thank goodness you're here. This man is harassing our community celebration." She pointed at me like I was the criminal. The deputy just shook his head. "Ma'am, this is now an active crime scene." The arrests were systematic. Underage drinking, vandalism, trespassing, all caught on camera, all live-streamed by Dylan himself. His swagger collapsed in real time. "Wait, why are there so many cops? This wasn't supposed to happen." His voice cracked as deputies cuffed him again. And then came the courtroom. The place was packed, neighbors, parents, reporters. Rebecca sat in front, dressed like a grieving saint, dabbing at her eyes. Dylan looked hollow, his lawyer sweating bullets. The charges were read: trespass, vandalism, conspiracy, criminal mischief. Dylan's lawyer tried spinning it as a misunderstanding about community rights. Then the judge said, "We'll hear victim testimony. The court calls Stephen Carter." I stood, walked to the witness stand. The clerk read it out loud: Chief Stephen Carter, Pine Valley Police Department. The reaction was instant. Gasps, whispers. Rebecca half screamed. "Entrapment." "He never said he was police," Dylan muttered into the mic, forgetting it was live. "Holy shit. He's the chief. We're screwed." I laid it all out. Weeks of harassment, fraudulent documents, live-streamed crimes, threats from Rebecca herself. Every video, every recording neatly documented. The judge looked at Dylan, looked at Rebecca, and said, "This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a criminal conspiracy." Dylan broke down, crying real tears this time. Rebecca just sat there shaking, realizing her reign was over. The HOA queen had fallen and her son's arrogance had dragged them both down. That's where it ended. In that courtroom, with their power stripped away, their reputations shattered, and the truth undeniable. And here's the lesson I took from all of it: entitlement always destroys itself. You just have to be patient enough to let it.